Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome to our last breakout session of the day. I hope your day has been going well and you've been enjoying Product Camp. Today in this session, the title is Product Launch and the Remote Workforce, How Not to Suck. And we have the two speakers today, John Arms and Jason Voiovich. John is a co-founder of VoyageurU. It's an online platform dedicated to the success of independent workforces. Prior to launching VoyageurU, John tooled around in marketing and outdoor industries. In 2004, he founded an advertising agency dedicated to the blending of creative genius and marketing math, two forces historically at odds with each other, hence the name Wingnut Advertising. He's been a contributing writer and a speaker in the marketing industry, outdoor adventure industry, conservation industry, and the talent industry. So welcome, John. And Jason is actually a partner of John in VoyageurU and has over 25 years in product development and part of that time as an executive leader. And he says he'd rather build things than talk about building them. And the latest, as I mentioned, is VoyageurU. So welcome, Jason, and John, turn it over to both of you.
Oh, thank you, Steve. We're glad to be here, and this is a great topic these days, isn't it, with so many people remote. So we hope you find a lot of good stuff to keep and hold on to here. So we got kind of three things we want to talk about today, but how to make this whole product launch not suck with an emerging talent structure that we're all experiencing now, which is remote. So we thought we'd talk about that a little bit so you can go out there and succeed and not suffer the suckiness of having a bad product launch. So first thing we'd like to do is let's define remote for 2020 because it's broad and it changes. It changes a lot. This remote, independent, whatever we call it, it's almost 50 million people now. And so it's a significant portion of how we work, and which means of how we get products launched. So, but understanding it is really, really key, and getting the sort of the pieces and bits right, because it's been quite a struggle for a lot of folks to, how do I deal with that? So we're going to share 4 definitions today to kind of help you pin down what they are. So remote right now means, we'll just talk about that. That's actually pretty easy. It's somebody that is employed by you, but working offsite. Most of us have been doing that since March. We're remote workers for a company. Okay, so that's sort of the easy definition. But the remote workforce is it's not limited to that. There's other contributors to this type of thing. So the next word that you hear when people talk about this is fractional. You're going to hear about that a lot as we go. You already have. And fractional skill sets, fractional people, they're hired by you. They're working offsite. They are retained to manage over time in fractions. Most likely that's a retainer. So that's typically what we call a fractional executive or fractional VP, whatever your title you want to put on it, but that's your fractional role. A consultant, if you have hired those, seems pretty simple, but they're hired by you, they're working off site, and that individual is bringing a very strategic, focused skill set to the party. Probably is not or it may not be a retainer based, and it may not have as much managerial type of thing. So there's a difference actually between consultants and fractional. And then the fourth skill set or person in this world of remote or independent is freelance, hired by you, working off site, and bringing a very specific tactical skill set. So those are the 4 things in this community, in this emerging world of 50 million people not working a traditional, W-2 job. It's more of a 1099 scenario. So those are the players. And as you can see right away, when you think about that, it's different. It's not what we have experienced for so many years in launching products and developing products and coming up with ideas and all of that. It's a different thing, and it's a good thing. It's a very, very good thing. So that is the definition of remote for 2020. It's like weather in Minnesota. Wait 5 minutes, it might change. This whole remote gig professional workforce has been a lot of oxygen in it. There's a lot of investment in it. It's very real in the marketplace, but boy, is it changing fast. it seems to be settling down. Jason and I have been doing this for several years now. It seems to be settling down and sort of catching its pace now. But it used to be called the gig workforce, and you'd have professionals who do product launch or product dev mixed right in with folks who are, Uber drivers and things like that. There's a little bit of a separation between the professional side and some of the other dimensions of it. So that is yeah. Go ahead, Jason.
For the folks trying to kind of wrap their head around the language here, the only thing I might add to that specific piece of it is that don't get hung up on the name that someone has, whether it's fractional, consultant, freelance, gig, whatever you want, contractor, whatever you want to call the person. I think it's more important to think about them functionally. So, for instance, you might have a remote worker, and that's just like an employee who happens to work somewhere else. But when you have folks that are not, technically employees, they might be 1099 contractors of varying types. You really have to think, are they going to be working for you on an ongoing basis, without a really defined project scope, or especially in product development, where a fractional worker might be on for the entire product development life cycle, or the entire dev life cycle, or the entire reboot life cycle, whatever the case may be. You might have a fractional person doing, like your Scrum Master might be fractional, because that person's got to be on there for a long period of time. A consultant or a freelancer or a contractor, it's all a matter, are they bringing in tactical skill or strategic skill? And that's going to have impact for when and how you bring them in, what part of the product life cycle, the dev cycle you bring them into. We'll get into some more examples of that kind of during part 3. But I just, John, I wanted to make sure that even I get confused with some of the, and we're in this every day, and I can't keep the terms straight. I don't expect other people to.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And it's because it's an emerging market. It's kind of funny. It's an emerging market that's been around for 100 years, meaning it's starting to take a dominant share of the workforce. That's all it means. And you're exactly right. It's good not to get too hung up on the definitions, but you'll realize as you go, as you deploy remote, shared workforce, whatever you call it, fractional, you realize everybody brings something different. And it's really important to sort of look at your project and look at your product and see, okay, what are the butts in the seats that we're going to need to make this thing go well? And those differences are pretty important. I know when I was running a company, we got up to 22 people. I struggled trying to understand, what is everybody delivering towards the goal here? And so it's really good to understand, just like Jason said, who's going to bring what to the party now that we're working in a remote scenario. So that's the definition side of things. To help you along, I put in the chat box a PDF of this discussion. So if you need notes, they're already sort of written down for you, and looking for those definitions, those are there. So the next thing I want to talk about is a little bit building on what Jason was just talking about here. And that is what's different about remote, fractional, consultant, and freelance different. What's different? What do they bring that's different than you may have in-house? And I want to unpack that a little bit. So, and I'm going to do it by the things that, the Voyager community, we've got 135 members. Everybody has different skills. So we have the benefit of seeing what people on the outside or on the inside who are working outside, what they're really bringing in to create business success. And it's sort of settled into a few different categories that is interesting, because there's things that folks bring that when you have a captured workforce, everybody's hired, everybody has a butt in a seat. When you bring remote or independent into the situation, boy, all of a sudden the world opens up a little bit. So I'm going to talk about those things. And the first one is wisdom. The beauty of having an outside workforce is those folks they've just been around. They tend to have been around for a little bit longer. They've probably failed more, so they know which traps to watch out for. They've experienced a lot of things beyond what you can ever experience in one company, because they're working for 5 or 6 or 7 different companies. There tend to be a little more, I shouldn't say gray hair, but they bring in a lot of wisdom to the party. And they see a broad range of wins and losses in product dev. So that's a benefit. Not saying your team or your group or your company doesn't have that, but when you reach into the independent workforce, that skill set, that wisdom is available to you. So that's one thing that might be different than what we're used to having. Two is speed and efficiency. Those who are working remotely, independently, fractional gig, they tend to be very, very fast. And there's some just basic reasons for that that kind of make sense when it comes to efficiency. And it's around, they're not stuck in traffic. They don't spend time in meetings that aren't really pertinent to the project they're working on or to the role that they're playing. And so the amount of time they have to dedicate things, and actually the more amount of focus they can apply, is very, very high. And what ends up happening is their customers and their clients tend to get a lot of speed and a lot of efficiency. Those normal things that slow people down really aren't in their world. So that speed and efficiency piece is really great. They get their work done mostly during the day. Don't have to wait till 9 o'clock at night to open the laptop like a lot of folks do. So that's different for very real with the remote independent workforce. Another is low cost. The great part about having remote independent workers is you're not paying for them throughout the year, whether it's a high salary or benefits. You're paying for smaller pieces of it. So that normal talent cost that applies to our traditional workforce, well, it's just lower. And Jason will talk a little bit more about cost savings, but as you apply your costs that you're going to incur in developing a product, and your talents costs are going to go down, you get to deploy those in other areas. So it's a very different thing and a different way to think about who you're going to put on a project. No sacrifice of skill, no sacrifice of the output you're looking for, but it is a lower cost venture. So that's really great. Another thing that you may not have, just by nature of people being outside of the house working for other clients and on different things, is I call it fresh tech tactics and tips. When you've stretched across maybe 5 or 10 product launches in a year, whereas sometimes people only work on 1 or 2, that freshness, all that comes back to you. So you get to see things through the lens of somebody who's been on the outside more than maybe somebody who's been on the inside, and they bring that to the party. And that's a great injection of a lot of fresh things that are happening out that may or may not be on your radar. And that's really important just about any business. And of course, it's definitely important in product dev. And then last is, I think this is one of the greatest parts of the independent workforce, is they just don't faint easily. People who choose to be independent, remote, fractional, they've been there, done that. So, if we're honest with ourselves, sometimes working through a product dev gets very stressful. It's people are, there's some late nights and maybe some tempers rise and that sort of thing. Well, those who are independent have generally been that. They're not going to pass out and faint the first time somebody flips over a table because a deadline was missed or because some aspect of the product wasn't delivered to the degree or to whatever it was. They just don't faint easily. It's more about getting the thing done right, and keeping things moving. So those are 4 things that this sector of the talent in business bring, that I encourage you to take the PDF, because you may have some of it. It's hard to have all of it, all of these things that they bring, because that would just mean you'd have to have such a large staff with so many people with so many skills. And this is a way to sort of pare that down and pluck the skills that you'd really, really like to have. So those are some things that this independent workforce brings to you that may not be there. And that's what's different about a lot of the talent that normally works on a product dev. Okay. Now we're going to talk a little bit. We're going to turn it over to Jason here. And I'm going to flip the slide. It's our last slide. We're not big on slides. We like talking about the subject matter. So,
yeah, I think that what I want to do is I like many of you who are listening right now, I've been in product dev my entire career. I started in product management and engineering in 1996, and in fiber optics and physical product development. But over that time, it's been optoelectronics, medical devices, software products, all different manner of roadmaps, all different manner of life cycle times, all of those different things. And I actually think, when John and I talked about this, I thought product development was one of those places where the remote virtual workforce really made a lot of sense, and that in many cases you'll find yourself not kind of nodding your head and agreeing that, hey, we've been doing this for a while in many ways, and it's just a matter of how do we kind of turn the dial from 4 to 5 on leveraging remote workers to 9 or a 10. And there are a few things. There's kind of 3 key things I want to talk with you about. One is kind of the opportunity in product dev, the risks that you need to mitigate, and then some key process takeaways that you need to make sure, based on John and I's experience being in product dev ourselves, developing and launching a product, as well as working with others doing the same thing. So upside, it's really about SME at the right time, subject matter expert at exactly the right time in the process when that person's needed and not when they're not. Typical things you find in there: user testing, user research, things that just need to be brought in and brought out at different times when you want that external perspective. And UX, UI it is really kind of a key point, whether that's digital product development or physical product development. Often you want that external user perspective to come in, and it's maybe better not to have that person on staff, because then you can get an outside-in view. So that's a key thing, and many of us are already doing that or have already done that. But I think in my one of the key places where I learned how to work on this and manage this is when you get into physical product development, especially embedded systems. There are all manner of different issues we'd run into on complex video drivers, kind of Bluetooth stack issues, fast boot issues, heat sinks on embedded systems. And if you know what I'm talking about there, you know that they can be, as processor speed goes up, size goes down, heat sinks become a massive issue. And just working through the physics of all that is not something that your typical EE knows a ton about once you cross a certain threshold. So being able to bring in really tactical subject matter experts at exactly that time, rather than trying to maintain that person on staff where they're just going to be bored out of their mind because they're not going to have the challenge that they need. I think the key things, though, is we used to think about, hey, we just need that person. If we're in the northern part of the Twin Cities metro, we want someone within a few miles where they can kind of drive in and see us. And we'd have this bias, whether it was conscious or unconscious, to have people who are physically close. Well, now, due to COVID, and really it's just accelerating that shift to not just a citywide, regional, or national workforce, but really a global workforce. I can tell you over the past 9 months, and many of you may be in the same position in product development, working with teams. I am accustomed to working with teams from Belarus, from Mumbai, from Singapore, from many parts in Asia, South America. I can tell you over the last 9 months, I have never been in so many different time zones. And it's just something that you need to think about, leveraging a global workforce versus a national workforce. And that leads right to that D&I, that kind of diversity and inclusion piece. Smaller organizations aren't going to be as, will certainly benefit from a diverse dev perspective, but large organizations often have diversity, equity, and inclusion objectives. I know most of the large organizations in the Minneapolis area absolutely do. And product dev can be an excellent way to work in DEI sort of objectives, not just to check a box, but because it's the right thing to do. You develop a better product by having a more diverse perspective. It's as simple as that. If it also happens to make your CEO happy, mazel tov, let's do it. Okay, but we do it because it's the right thing to do. So that's something to be thinking about as you do that. Now, some of the downside risks you've got to mitigate. You absolutely have to mitigate, especially when you're doing digital products. Going to be your user base is a little easier to reach, or can be. But when you've got physical products, IoT products, especially IoT products, healthcare products, you need people physically present in order to do testing, in order to do customer immersion. That is extremely difficult right now, and there are a whole additional list of concerns and considerations. You also have trouble with accountability on the team. If people are remote, sometimes getting everyone in one physical space is very difficult to hide. So you need to amp up the accountability. You need to leverage your tools to help you do that, because you can't back off of accountability, because it's very easy to hide digitally. It's very easy to kind of put the, like, hey, some of you even right now might be multitasking, have another thing going on. That's cool. But when you're trying for accountability on a stage gate meeting, you could be in a lot of trouble right now. So you gotta manage those kind of tools. Take steps, make people have their video on. Hold to your weekly meetings. If you've got a sprint review meeting or you've got to stand up, no missing it. You know, you got to make sure that people understand that just because you're not physically in the building doesn't mean you can check out. You may have IP issues, intellectual property issues, especially as John mentioned, you're going to have consultants who are working on multiple projects. You've really got to think about what your contracts are structured like. Talk with your lawyers in advance. Don't give them the option that they get to say no, because that's not an option. It's a matter of, it's not if, it's how. And make sure that you talk with them early and often about the contract structure if you haven't already. Finally, I think the biggest issue I have, and I bet you do too, is just platform overwhelm. And that's, you know, we've got Excel events right here. I'm on Zoom, I'm on Skype, I'm on a thing called Join Me. It's terrible. I'm on how many other video platforms are you on? How many other collaboration platforms are you on? You've been Microsoft Teams, so that's fun. Also been on GoToWebinar, GoToMeeting. Every one of these is different. Every one of them has its own kind of pluses and minuses and challenges. One of the key things you need to be thinking about as you look at product dev is not increasing your tool set, but reducing your tool set. You know, so in this product dev, if you've got a 9-month roadmap, you are going to limit to, let's say you're going to use MS Project to do all of the planning, and you are going to use Zoom for your meetings, and you're going to use Slack for your, for your communication and file sharing. That's it. No GoToMeetings, no Google Drives, no, Excel worksheets, no extra PowerPoints, no nothing, because to collaborate with all of these different people, everyone's going to have their own preferences, but you as the product owner, the product manager, have to determine what that tool set looks like. Remember, 80% of the job of a product manager, product owner is communication. So, in order to help with that, you have to have your tool set has to work for you, not against you. And especially when we've got remote workers and everyone's doing a different thing, you need to make sure you are accountable to the product out the door. You are accountable to those, to those financial metrics. You can't be spending 20%, 25% of your time on, kind of checking multiple platforms. It's your accountability to make sure that you take that down so that you can free up that time to work through engineering issues, to get more customer immersion, because you're going to have new struggles that you didn't know you had. The tools right now, I'm sorry to say, they suck in a lot of ways. And they are taking your time, not giving it back, especially with the remote workforce. It's the biggest issue John and I see is not too many tools. Limit your tool set. It doesn't matter what it is. Every tool is going to have an upside and a downside. Okay? No tool is perfect. Limit it. You'll be able to manage that. So just things that John and I have found. We hope that this is helping you. We've got a PDF in there that covers a lot of these things. So we're going to, both John and I are going to shut up, and we're going to let Steve kind of curate some questions and kind of poke at us and see what additional value we can bring for you.
Great. Thank you, John and Jason. Appreciate it very much. If anyone has any questions on this topic for John and Jason, please go ahead and use the chat or the Q&A, and we'll make sure that we address them. So yeah, please jump in. Anyone have any chat or questions for John or Jason? Go ahead and place them in there now, and we'll make sure that they address them.
And while you're
one note, if both John and I are pretty open on the platform here, the Excel Events platform, or on LinkedIn. So if you want to connect with us and want to do that later, both of us are really open, and would love to meet and talk with you later as well.
Yeah,
for sure.
Great.
For sure. The last presentation on a 70-degree day, it's probably one of the key questions is how soon can I get outside?
Yeah, that's going on, John. I'm quite sure that's happening. You just have to look out the window at this day. It's amazing, right? For November. Right. Yeah.
People are typing those in. If they're thinking about it, the sort of the wrap up is to succeed and make it not suck. It's actually pretty simple. Jason and I talk about this all the time. Try not to overcomplicate things. Know the types of independent workers that you're going to have. Know what they bring that you either don't have or need for your product to have, and then put a structure around it that's very simple and clear. That is a way to make it not suck, where you'll win. You'll win with this talent pool.
Yeah, I found I would just reiterate. The longer I've been in product development, the more I've come to realize how important clear communication is. When clear objectives, if you've got a stage gate process or an agile process or whatever the case may be, I'm not a believer that you have to use agile versus waterfall, or you have to use stage gate versus active beta. I found you can develop an excellent product in any methodology, depending on what it is methodology the right match for the product and the market and your organizational culture? If it is, you're going to win. With this, the real key is that without people in the office, and with people all over the world, and people with varying levels of commitment to your project, okay, coming in and out, you as the product manager and the product owner need to take command and accountability for the communication and setting expectations, depending on who's on the team, when, and what their relationship is. Really as the product manager, Honey Badger don't care about all that. Honey Badger cares about the product getting out on time, on budget, and that meets the market need, and gets its return on invested capital. That's your job. How you get that done. You have so many more tools from a personnel perspective now than you did even a year ago. So much more acceptance in the market. John and I share this chart on LinkedIn that we like, that it's this number of people who have started their own business and gone independent in the last quarter. And it's this kind of upward trend over the past 5 years, and then just a hockey stick. Right. Well, of course that's COVID. We know that, but as that ain't going away. We're going to be working remote, and people are, John and I know, people found it and they like it. They don't want to go back.
That's exactly right. Yep.
So it looks like we don't have any questions or any chat comments from anyone on the session today. So I guess that we have answered everybody's questions with the talk. So if there aren't any questions that anyone has for John and for Jason, I'll just look to wrap up our talk today. This is actually the last session of the day for today, and the end of ProductCamp for yesterday and today. There are opportunities to go hang out. It is a beautiful day outside, so I understand if that's not your next activity that you like to do. But if you would like to, we do have in the lounge, you can go to, there's 4 lounges set up to be able to go hang out with others and just have an open dialogue or chat. with anyone. So invite anyone to be able to go do that next. And with that, I would like to also say thank you to John and Jason for their time and for a presentation today. Thanks very much. And I truly hope that everyone who has joined ProductCamp got something of value out of it. And we thank you for taking the time to be able to spend with us over the last 8+ hours. So with that, we'll end the broadcast. Again, thanks, John and Jason, and I hope everyone enjoyed, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you very much. Appreciate being here.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Take care. Bye.